Welcome to the Too Much Moxie podcast. I am your humble host, Too Much, and welcome to the very first episode of the Too Much Moxie podcast. And today's going to be just a me and you talk. This is my very first YouTube channel, podcast, very first episode. I'm very brand new in the space. And I have a lot to say. I have a lot to offer, I feel. And that's why I started this channel. Now, you might see me partaking in my California, I don't know, what do you want to call it? I'm smoking weed, right? Let's just be real, okay? I'm in California, it's legal, and I'm taking advantage of the opportunity, right? The law right here. So I'm smoking. And it's also calming my nerves a little bit. So I don't know if it's proper etiquette to smoke and do this, but we're going to do it anyway. Because this is the Too Much Moxie podcast. And again, I am your humble host, Too Much. And we're going to get into it, man. We're going to talk about it today. And, first I want to give, I want to start this out by saying this is not the best time for me to be doing a podcast. I just found out, got news that someone that's dear to me just passed away from COVID. And it wasn't really on social media to let me know. I didn't see anything. It wasn't until it was too late that I find out. But it just goes to show, man, that, you have to keep in contact with people. You have to let people know how much they mean to you now, even more so than before, because you don't know how long you might have. And I want to give honor to this woman. She was a mother figure in my life, and God bless her soul, and Godspeed to her, and safe journeys and safe travels in the life after death. And she was a good friend of mine's mother, good friend, high school friend of mine, junior high school friend of mine. It was a very, very close friend of mine. Mother passed away, who happened to be a mother figure for me growing up. And that brings me to the shows that I want to talk about. I was going to talk about another topic, but I wanted to talk about this. What did you learn from your father? What did your father figure, absentee father, teach you growing up? Now, everyone's going to have something different, because everybody had, not all fathers are the same. Some had fathers, some didn't. Some had stepdads, right? But in essence, what did you learn? What did they teach you? I want to give honor to my father, my dad, rest in peace also, who passed in 2018, before the COVID. He was a good father. I didn't realize how important he was, and it's unfortunate. You don't realize how important, how much your parents have an effect on you until they're gone. My dad passing hit me pretty hard, to the point where I was having dreams, okay, about talking to him and seeing him. They picked him up in the truck. We jumped in the truck, and we were with other people that were working, and we got dropped off at this farm. And I watched my dad clean this, clean that, and I guess I was there to help him, but I wasn't that much help. I didn't. I really just watched him work, and it was like 3, 4 in the morning. I was tired, but you know what? The situation we was in, he couldn't leave me home alone, so I had to go with him. And we worked, or he worked. I watched him, and I remember the smell and the stench. And I watched my dad work for many jobs, bowling alleys. He used to, he got in so good with the owners on our block. The 99 cent store owner would lend my dad money. He would do trips for him. He would deposit his money in the bank for him. They were like family. They were a Pakistan family, and they became like our extended family because of my dad. My dad's relationship with the son and the family, and just my dad being well versed and knowing how to talk to different types of people of all walks of life. I've noticed my dad had friends from all races. And when I say friends, my dad had the friends that you can call and they'll be like, is Mr. Moxie in trouble? How much does he need? With no hesitation. My dad used to tell me, you have a friend and when you can ask them for money and they have it and they give it to you. If you have a friend, my dad told me that. My dad said, if you have a friend that doesn't have the money, why would you ask them? Because they don't have it. They can't give it to you. So it's understandable if they say no or anything like that, but you already know they don't have it, so you shouldn't be asking them in the first. But if you ask your friend that have the money and they don't help you, that's not your friend. My dad taught me that. That's not your friend. And he also taught me that don't be the friend that asks your friend for money. Don't be that guy. Get it on your own. Find a way. Be self-sufficient. My dad, man, like I said, I watched him make all kinds of sacrifices for his family, man. And he had access to people with money and things like that. And I watched him do what he had to do. I seen more people offer my dad help, free help, than him ever ask for help. And, my dad just, what did your dad teach you? What did you learn from your father? How did he affect you growing up? I'm 41 now. My dad passed when I was 38. Great man. I would say he's an alpha male. Just based on his structure. He's always been a man of structure or wanted structure. He's always commanded people's respect. When he walked in the room, you knew, he was up there with the big dogs, He was a humble man. He had health problems because of the military, and he would never let us know what he was going through. He would still get up and do what he needs to do, whether he's in pain or not. And I look back on that, and I think about all the pain that my dad endured because of the military, of his body just breaking down, and all the times he would complain about pain, but he'll still, or I want to say my dad complained about the pain, because that'd be a lie. But that many times he would be in pain and would not let us know. I didn't really understand how much pain my dad was going through until later on in life, later on in years of a little bit of his struggle. I really didn't understand until, I started really paying attention. But You know, I get a lot of that. I know now where I get a lot of my strength come from him. And it kind of just, I'm not special, but I am a product of how this man really raised me. And just being around his masculine energy all the time, I am who I am. Now I don't know, if you guys can tell I'm in a wheelchair, I don't want to talk about me right now. I'll probably talk about me, but I got shot in 2002. I've been in a wheelchair since 2002. And I'm not a complainer. I go through pain and suffering, but, so what? Who cares about the price of tea in China? It's kind of how I look at it. And I kind of get that from my dad. He wasn't someone that complained about the way the world is. He just operated in it and maneuvered in a way so it doesn't affect him. And you got to respect that, man. I love that about my dad. My dad was his boss, was his own boss. My dad lived life, I won't say he lived the best life, because he could have had a better life. And imagine if my dad didn't have 3 kids to deal with, But